today, and you do not want to have your split one end after only 2 stage days. Now, you win this, you win the next one, then you're really getting extended because that'll qualify you for the Americas level competition, which will be played in Sao Paulo. So
yes,
these teams are in a bad spot, but it's easily recoverable from, and we're deep into this draft already.
All right, let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. It is Poppy, Zyra, and Mbessa banned out by LYON. Shopify responding with that perma-ban responsibility of Skarner on the red side, alongside the Kalista and the Varus. Ksante first pick over for LYON. The response from Shopify, locking in the Jayce, which flexes very well either solo lane, and the Corki.
Absolutely. Corki could still go bot, so they have a little bit of a double flex for Shopify already, but if I had to guess, I'd say Fudge will probably play that grasp Jayce up into the Ksante top lane.
Yeah. Also, back on the other side, LYON, very quick with their next rotation as well, picking up the Ezreal. The Pantheon, too. This is something that we're seeing more and more of recently. Core JJ has been playing a lot of it in support and solo queue recently. We saw TL break that out just last week in the support role. Earlier this morning in the LTA South, Brazil was also playing at top lane, did very well in that game with the Pantheon. So we'll see where this ends up going. A little bit of flex on both sides here as Sejuani is locked in for Shopify.
And even more grassroots, Spica, the former rank 1 player, now rank 2 player in NA solo queue, abused Pantheon to get there. Pobelter in his jungle to challenger stream had Pantheon as his most played jungle, so it's a big time flex pick here.
He's very strong. He's been buffed enough now that his numbers are just frightening enough that Pantheon can force a lot of really, really good situations for himself. But let's take a look at these bans because it's getting AP heavy here in the second half of the draft. Lilia, Galio, Talia, all off the table.
And I like the fact that they are still banning out the AP junglers because they want to make it difficult for Oddie to have one of those picks. So they're probably predicting that that Pantheon is support.
And you can see that they're kind of agreeing with you on LYON's side. They're saying we're betting that the Jayce is there for Fudge. We don't see that as the Palafox pick. We're banning the mid laners instead in terms of the Galio, in terms of the Azir. Both of those champions very effective. Galio particularly being able to join up in the side lane fights, the heroic entrance making a huge difference, but not this game, as it looks like the mid lane picks for Shopify going to look a lot like Viktor.
They are so standard looking with their current champions. So this kind of confirms that the Corki is going to be bot lane. Palafox will be running Viktor back. That's what he played in one of the 2 games against C9 last week. I thought he looked pretty good on it, to be completely honest, and it gives him the confidence to blind pick it here. Maybe going up against an Aurora mid here from Saint.
Yeah, it looks like the Aurora will be the play. What is the last pick of the draft, though, for LYON, as we will get the Vi locked in? So, looks like Saint's got the Aurora in mid, means Pantheon's going to be going bottom. LYONz will be piloting that one in the support role next to the Ezreal. Between Ezreal Mystic Shots and Pantheon Spears, you can actually get a lot of long-range poke damage in those trades if you can hit your skill shots.
You absolutely can. I do like the Braum last pick there from Shopify Rebellion, though, since LYON has so much engage with the Vi, Aurora, Ksante, Pantheon, everything flying in. It is one thing that I did like about LYON's team compositions last week is it felt like they were very proactive, so they always had the ability to make a play. They just weren't quite as coordinated to make that play. But to be completely honest, diving into Viktor Braum late game sometimes can be very difficult. So I like that Shopify has a little bit of a counter-engage comp here.
Exactly. You've got the wall from Braum. You've got the gravity well from Viktor. Makes it just so difficult if you're not all on that same page. But I do have to agree with you because I feel like especially when you're looking at teams both starting off this week winless, as we're talking about, week number 1, both going 0-2. When you're looking at teams that are in the lower parts of the standings and sometimes even in the middle of the standings, it's all about, can you just have that trigger pull? Can you go in and say, we need to fight now? Because if you don't have enough engage mechanisms, if you don't have enough go buttons, they stall out, right? So I love seeing engage opportunities. I love seeing something like a Vi where you just point and click, go.
Yeah. Even if last week they point and clicked go to the lower bracket with some of the Vi guys.
We want to go the opposite direction.
It's a really tricky thing when you're in these high pressure situations with this little amount of practice as a team. LYON only having a couple scrim blocks last week into having a full week of scrims this week. A lot of times when you're not playing well, sometimes a solution can actually be to pick more passive scaling, let yourself get strong, and almost feel like you're winning the game automatically. But that is the opposite of what LYON is doing. They are just going to continue with what they were trying to pull off last week, and I appreciate the commitment because I think it'll give us a more exciting game.
Okay, let's see what we end up getting here. Both of our top laners will be running Grasp this time around, so expect a lot of trading back and forth up there. Interesting to note that both supports and both AD carries have different summoner spells. Hena going with the Cleanse to make sure that he can get away from the high amount of CC available, especially later on in the game as Contractz pays more attention to him. Meanwhile, Lyonz running the Ignite on the Pantheon for the kill pressure. The other side, though, Bvoy opting for the barrier, and then Zeyzal having the exhaust for whichever one of these high-priority targets tries to get into the backline on their carries, whether it's Saint on the Aurora, whether it's Licorice going all out. Just the extra ability to defend against that, I think, also synergizes well with the point that you made about Braum and Viktor wanting to absorb you. Exhaust is a great spell to absorb engage.
It really is. And Bvoy, at a certain point, won't have options other than to stand and take as much damage as possible, which is in situations where I actually really appreciate the barrier when you're thinking about Vi and Aurora potentially just diving straight onto him afterwards. And the fact that there aren't that many viable targets on this team, because this is going to be a Grasp Jayce, likely tank Jayce. That guy gets about 4,000 health at 25 minutes just from Grasp and the Winter's Approach. So it is really just Bvoy and Palafox that need to make sure they have some defensive options in these later team fights.
Lion hitting the charged up spear there on the Pantheon as Bvoy and Zeyzal both make their entry into the bottom lane. Back up top side, Licorice versus Fudge. These are two of the champions that we saw a lot of mentions about in Bwipo's top lane dossier that he released on Twitter, talking about his current priorities and things like that. So we'll see if this shakes out according to Bwipo's rules.
The Book of Bwipo. It's really just a big graphic.
Yeah, it's just one giant image of all of Bwipo's musings there on the top lane. But Shopify versus Lion, again, just kind of going back to week number 1. It's been a long time since we've seen these teams play before last week, right? And so everybody kind of, it gets a little crazy with how short the split is, with only having like the one series, especially with both of these teams having pretty difficult opponents to play, right? You think about Shopify having to go up against FlyQuest, Lion having to go up against C9, which although that they faltered a little bit last year, they are still one of the historically strongest teams in the region. Now these teams going up against each other, this is the chance where if you're either one of these squads, you're looking at this match and saying, no, we should win these.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And it's tricky when you're trying to make the analysis of how strong these teams are from a single data point, because Shopify got slammed, but is FlyQuest the best team in the LCS? And then Lion looked better, and they played against Cloud9, who were not expecting to be that great, but could still be really good. So it's one of those things where you're doing a lot of circular logic, and ultimately just has to be settled with the two playing against each other today.
When you're in week 2, you just have to infer a lot of information by default. It's just the nature of the game. But the information we can observe right now is that neither one of the junglers has gone for super early involvement in any of the lanes. Instead, both opting for the full 6-camp clear into the Scuttle Crab afterwards. And now let's see if we get Oddie's just going to go ahead, use that vision plant
might have an angle here. Palafox is completely out of mana, though.
Yeah, Palafox 200 HP, 0 mana to work with. Saint just going to try to walk this one off as Contractz makes his approach. Audieland coming to help his mid laner here, make sure that Contractz doesn't have the opportunity to force out a flash. And yeah, these two will just scrap a little bit back and forth. Doesn't really matter a whole lot. Both junglers covering for their mids, as Palafox does have the HP advantage, but still both of them with so little mana to work with. You can't really see a whole lot more happening here. Fudge getting the better of Licorice in these topside trades early on. Audieland jumping in, forces the flash out of Palafox, trading his own.
Interesting little attempt there. Would have been really great if he could have pulled it off. Both junglers had been jobless there with all their camps being down. It's going to cost the Vi a little bit of tempo here, seeing as he's like maybe 5 seconds later on the Gromp. But I think that's worth it if you're trying to get Saint going on this game as Aurora to get the flash off of Palafox this early.
Especially since, you know, both of our mid laners already level 4. Hold on, down here in the bottom lane. Bvoy and Zeyzal both in a little bit of danger. Lyonz going to get another spear in there. Bvoy with a barrier trying to block the spear, but it doesn't do a whole lot. Contractz wanting to go in with a flash of his own, but it's a little bit overzealous. Not really sure what Contractz is looking for there. Lyonz charging up another spear, tosses that one in there. Low health bars across the board on Shopify down here. Contractz, this is what we were talking about earlier, Chad, not being on the same page. He flashes in there, but there's no follow-up behind him. Nice use of the Unbreakable there from Zeyzal to block yet another spear from Lyonz.
I think that was just a poor play by Contractz. It's one thing to not be on the same page. It's another thing of whether or not Shopify actually had health or mana to do anything. So I think I've definitely been there as a jungler where
we've all been there.
That fight bottom pulled him off his Gromp. So he was delayed on his full clear. He's thinking, if I'm going to spend the time to come down here, I'm going to make it count.
Yeah.
So he went in. I think he wasn't even trying to kill. He was just hoping to get some summoners off of Hena's Ezreal, which ultimately he did as Hena flashed forward to try and kill him. But it was an overextension by Contractz. I think he's lucky to get out of there without a death.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a tough one. We really want to see better decision-making, I would say.
Roll the dice a little better.
Yeah, exactly. See if we can get double digits there on the D20. But meanwhile, Shopify is going to send Bvoy and Zeyzal both towards the mid lane now. Saint level 6 here on the Aurora. Palafox still level 5 on his Viktor, just now hitting the ulti point now. What I was going to say before we got that scrap bottom is, hold on, okay, not quite going to get the stun. I like the fact that they've traded the flash from Oddie for the flash for Palafox. And that's still down for about half the cooldown now at their level 6s with Saint on the Aurora. Should be easy to set up for a return play, but Contractz going after the first set of grubs.
Yeah, but also because the flash was burned mid allows Saint's Aurora to make a move down bottom lane. Because they know grubs is being taken, and because Lyonz' Pantheon didn't move, they've basically stopped Bvoy from approaching this turret. He's about a level down. It is just going to be a straight trade, but on top of that trade is a large amount of experience denial from the bottom lane. So I think Lion comes out a little bit on top with that move, which I like to see.
And also, when we go back to considering Contractz and the play that he made bottom, trying to force summoner spells from bottom lane, ultimately getting the flash from Hena, like you said, Hena's Ezreal. He has flash on a 30-second cooldown. You can see right there where he was playing super aggressively.
And no
just jumped back up the wall. This is what I was talking about. This is why you get Palafox's flash. It's just so easy to make the return trip, and it's first blood for Lion.
That was just a really nice overall sequence, because that was set up from the flash being burned, but I think more directly set up by the Grub for Drake trade. They knew that they were denying Braum and Corki so much, they could see Braum on the map, so it was a safe gank as well. It's something you're very willing to commit to because there's no way that Shopify can counter that, and it pays off with that first blood. The only bad thing is that it went to Pantheon.
Yeah, but hey, Pantheon's one of those supports where I feel like if you can get him ahead of the curve of the game, he can feel significantly more impactful than something. Like if Alistar's ahead of the curve of the game, he's still just Alistar. He's invulnerable when his ult's on. You can kill him when it's off. He's still Alistar. But Pantheon can really make a difference more so with the money, I feel like.
Especially because he's going Heartsteel.
Yeah.
So it's actually one of those things where I'd be willing to give the Pantheon a little bit of CS down bottom lane early. Just like not a bunch, but you can sneak a minion here or there if it gets your Heartsteel earlier, because I think that'll actually pay off for more gold later. So I take it back. Everything about that gank was good.
You're okay with it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's 5 stars for the gank for Lion early on. Lyonz himself, you can see he's got that Grand Starfall ready to cast. This can create so many opportunities in itself. Palafox still with a little bit of time left on that flash cooldown as well. You got to be mindful of it. He's got to be so careful if he steps up here in this mid lane. Pantheon is going to show back up in the bottom lane now, so he's not going to have to worry about that as much. But still a nice little gold lead for Lion here early. 1-1 on those objectives like we were already talking about. So nothing really to run away with the game in the first 9 minutes, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from Lion.
I think they're looking as aggressive as they did last week, but a little bit more coordinated. So
yeah, on track.
2 thumbs up so far. I do think the game is going to be a little bit slow right now, with both objectives still being on 1 or 2 minute timers. And someone we haven't talked that much about this game, just to make sure nothing's happening, is Fudge's Jayce top. So he's got a decent advantage early on against Licorice. I will say that Licorice, even though he had some highlight plays on the Poppy in the late game, was down like 20 or 30 CS every game, maybe 40 CS at certain points to Thanatos. So it's not exactly a matchup where he can do amazingly, but I do think both these guys are going to want to bounce back in a big way after last week.
Licorice going to go ahead, purchase those plated steel caps, get that one completed. Very helpful just with the laning against Jayce that can be pretty excruciating without the defensive options. A little bit of a look last week for performances of Fudge and Licorice both.
30-14 was what we were thinking about there. Fudge didn't have it much better, actually more of a gold deficit than Licorice.
1K.
I would imagine that's kills and plates that factor into that as well, since FlyQuest was lane swapping like crazy and Bwipo was able to absorb a lot of gold just through that. So it's not exactly like Fudge was laning last week, but it's more about being ahead of the general state of the game that he wants to be here.
Especially with the lane swap stuff that we were talking about. Hold on. Let's see what this play turns into first, because Oddie Land could be in some trouble. But Lyonz is going to show up. Is he too late? Oddie going in after the Corki. They're going to lock up Bvoy instead. Burst him down. A little bit more damage from Pantheon. Gets it done. Oddie Land getting himself away at the same time. Palafox walks up, but the credits are already rolling. Show's over in the top lane, and Lyonz up 1-0 in the scrap.
Oddie really made that work. He was caught out a little bit early. It was a 2v3 for a lot of that fight, but then rather than trying to retreat, just going more in shows what type of page he's on with Lyonz. Like,
yeah.
So Pantheon, I was watching the Pantheon through all that because he had full stacks from his passive as Fudge is actually all in Licorice here.
Whoa, Licorice deciding to go all in right back after Fudge. He has the third Intofo strike ready, but enough distance created from the Shopify top laner. Contractz trying to interfere as LYON goes after the second set of the Grubs. LYON has critically secured one Grub for themselves. It denies Shopify the opportunity to get another bit of progress towards the feet. It also denies them the full 6 in terms of the strength that you get from the Grublings, and it looks like LYON is going to just take that as good enough.
Yeah, nice sidestep at the end there by Hena to make himself not have to burn any summoner spells when he sidestepped the Braum Q. But to go back to that fight one more time, the patience that LYON showed, so he's full stacks on Pantheon. You think when the fight starts and he arrives that he would just start using some of his spells, like his Vi is getting engaged on, but you can see they're so clearly saying, we're waiting for Bvoy. Ults through, flash to follow, completely ignoring Zeyzal and Contractz, knowing that the prize is Bvoy. Ends up getting the last hit tick with the Ignite, which we know that means an earlier Heartsteel, so not a problem that the support takes it. He's got the second giant spell right now. He's getting closer, and he might be caught in the river.
LYON's in some danger, however, that shield very effective at these types of situations. It buys him the time he needs to walk away with no real threat of death. Great game so far from the support Pantheon here. Closer and closer to that Heartsteel like you're talking about. The first Drake, remember, was claimed by the side of LYON. Second one live on the map right now, considering nothing is alive in the Grub pit on the other side of the map. We could see a fight over this, but back down in the bottom lane, it's now Saint up versus Fudge as Contractz and Zeyzal going to go ahead and start up this Drake. There is a ward, however, from LYON in the pit that lets them know.
And Lyonz would be able to ult in to disrupt this one, but they don't have everyone in position yet. You can see Shopify's pulled it out to be relatively safe. Contractz has flash if they go in, but they've set up a trap.
Immediately they jump in with Oddie and Saint together, and they just blast Fudge out of the bottom lane. Now Contractz needs to finish up this Drake and get out of the river. Oddie working together again with Saint. The Aurora and Vi combo so deadly with the two ultis combined. The lockdown is so obnoxious to try to get away from, and they just make it way too easy to kill Fudge.
Yeah, that was a nice trap they set up there in the bottom lane. And there was a lot of questions about how disoriented this team might be because they have players from so many different locations. But they absolutely feel like they have found the same page early on in this week.
Yeah, I mean, you see all the flags across the players there at the bottom. Is that Canada, Peru, Korea, Argentina?
Absolutely.
It's
nice job.
Yeah,
nice job.
It's quite a lineup there, but they're making it work. They're actually playing very cohesively as a team in the first 13.5 minutes of this game. I'm really liking what I'm seeing. They're up over 1,000 gold. They're even on Dragons. Yes, they are behind in the Grubs, but I feel like they've got good momentum. You've got Luden's Companion completed in the mid lane. You've got the items completed for jungle and top as well. They're in a really good spot, and I want to see them continue this aggro. I want to see them continue using this Vi especially to make the plays on their terms.
They have to as well, because I would say that Shopify's team comp scales very well. So as much as we're singing the praises of the Vi and the Pantheon flying in and making things happen early, one of those things goes wrong, and late game Viktor ult just starts getting bigger and bigger, and you just lose the game. So yes, it is a good start. You can see they got some decent plate gold as well. They're well on their way to getting feats of strength, which should give them a boot bonus if they can just kill that bot turret, since they already had the first 3 kills. But Shopify just needs one good play to get back in the game, and it might be this.
Yeah, Licorice in some danger right now, but nice use of the footwork there at the very end. Make sure he goes down towards the minion wave instead of straight away from the Jayce. Means he dodges that last accelerated shock blast. Licorice spins the flash, but he stays alive critically as Contractz and Fudge won't get the kill there. But this should be first turret of the game. No, it goes over the other direction, and that means that feats belong to LYON. They got the first 3 kills, they got the first turret, and they're going to take the bonus boots.
That'll be really nice for them. Just a little bit of extra move speed for everyone, as well as the option to have the upgraded boots later in the game, especially when they are on one of these full engaged team comps. Being able to get that little bit of extra engage range can actually be pretty important. I do want to quickly call your attention, though, to this Grasp Jayce that we've been seeing so much of.
Okay.
He already has 2,933 health. At
so
15,
much health.
It's just so much health. And part of it is the runes. He can proc grasp so much. He can send out the auto attack in range form, switch to melee, and get the melee version of the grasp proc. He's done that a little bit.
While it's in the air, yeah.
Exactly. So he's only gained 86 health from the grasp from his 26 uses so far. So a lot of those are going to be the ranged uses. You get 5 health for a melee use, 3 health for a ranged use. But then you also, because you're in that tree, he's gained 165 health from overgrowth, and it's just going to keep adding up throughout the game, where he'll be at like 4 or 5k health by the end of the game.
It's so difficult to deal with because the base values in the champion are also very high, but now Contractz needs to be careful. He and Zeyzal exiting stage right while Palafox is in danger. Oddie starting it off here with the ulti onto the Viktor, but not a whole ton of damage here just yet. Ezreal ulti flies through from the other side of the map, and Palafox is already down. Saint's the one doing the shooting as Fudge tries to back up his team, but a grand starfall brings Lyonz into the mix and brings Zeyzal straight down into the ground. Double kill for Saint. 5-0 Lion, and it's Rift Herald the reward.
And that's exactly the type of play they want to be able to make. The one spot where Shopify moves beyond the halfway point in the map, and they're immediately punished. I really am impressed with Lyonz this game. I mean, this guy isn't even with the team. Like, he's playing remote. So he's playing with some latency. He doesn't have the luxury of being immediately next to them, and he's the one leading the way with a lot of these plays. So the way this started was Oddie really just jumping onto Palafox, but then the continuation of this play just speaks to how much they are on the same page. Watch Lyonz Pantheon, as the fight is pretty much just started, decides to ult all the way over the top. Zeyzal is still thinking that they might be able to fight that after Fudge teleports in, and they're very easily able to get the next kill.
And Lyonz on the Pantheon too, he recognizes the way that the fight is breaking, because they've already split up into the top lane and then running into the brush, he can make that ulti because all you do is aim your shield right and any counterattack is not going to work. You'll never int. It's int proof. Very few things in League are int proof. That was int proof.
I've done it a few times. Anyway, this is Audilon's timeline, and you can see what a champion he actually was in the LLA. This is why some of the expectations for him were so high and why he had such a disappointing week 1, kind of going in way ahead of his team. But so far, he's the one that is getting followed by his team. Level 12 already, same level as his solo laners.
Yeah.
100% kill participation, and now they're looking to make a play around this next Drake.
I mean, we always, throughout the history of League of Legends, often talk about mid-jungle synergy, how these two roles have to work together, how that facilitates so much of what happens on the map. And both Saint and Audie have 100% KP in this game that only has 5 kills. In this game that all of those kills belong to Lion. 2 of those on the enemy mid laner. And it's not like they're just focusing the same guy over and over and over again. Almost everybody on Shopify has at least 1 death. The only person who hasn't fell down yet is Contractz. But Contractz on the Sejuani hasn't really been able to make anything happen for his team besides, what, 1 flash for Licorice up there in the top lane? Meanwhile, back in mid now, Oddie could be in some trouble, down to half HP, having to fall back. Sejuani ulti only hits Saint, and he's not really too sad about it. Contractz now down to 1/3 HP as the Herald claims the tier 1 turret back in the mid lane. They do zap it with Palafox's laser before we can charge the second time. But again, Shopify not finding enough.
And now their engage is pretty much gone for this next Drake if Lion want to turn for it. That was the Sejuani and the Braum ult and the Sejuani flash burned there. So Lion is pretty unafraid of any collapse here from Shopify, and they can take this Drake uncontested.
All right, nothing to it. Shopify's like, well, we tried. You know, we went in for the defense on the tier 1. Got to just let this go now. So that will be a 2-1 Drake lead for the side of Lion. 5-0 kill lead, 2-1 turret lead, 3,000 gold lead.
Yeah.
Every single lead in the game belongs to Lion.
If it keeps going this way, it will feel a lot like a stomp. But these are the games that are always a little strange for me to watch, where I know that Braum, Corki, Jayce, Viktor scaling is really high. You have the stopwatch being completed already from the Viktor. The Jayce is now at 3,400 health. Bvoy is going to be relatively tanky as well with the Trinity Force build on Corki, as well as having that barrier. Like, they are going to be a hard team to continue to dive on top of. So I do feel like Shopify kind of just needs one good fight, and they might be able to turn it back. But Voracious Otacon makes it 2 good fights, because if you get the good fight against Voracious Otacon, that little 200 gold per person and loss of tempo isn't going to be enough.
He's so strong, man.
That
objective is so strong. But yeah, we do have, not only do we have second items starting to come online in a couple of different roles, but worth noting that we have 3 separate tiers that are all about to evolve. Fudge is about to get his fully stacked Fimbulwinter. You already have the tier at 360 for Hena on the Ezreal. He just needs to buy the rest of the components for the Muramana. And then Bvoy, kind of the worst of both worlds, still needs the rest of the pieces and the last bit of the tier, but they're all going to be hitting those big stacked up spikes here very soon, as Saint will be left with the tier 1 turret up here in the top side. Licorice defending the tier 1 of LYON from Fudge in the bottom lane at the same time. Licorice still down that 30 CS, kind of in line with what you were setting the expectation for based on his week 1. The Ksante into the Jayce. Obviously you expect the Jayce to run the lane, but it's Shopify going after the Otacon first.
I don't love it, but we'll see if it pays off, because Saint can teleport down, and you can see Vi and Ezreal approaching from the jungle as well. I feel like Shopify is going to be in a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah, they're not exactly doing this super fast. You're seeing the teleport start to come in. Palafox making his way down into the fight. Licorice has already gone all out. Lyonz and Hena are both nearby. Otacon's still got 7,000 HP. Okay. It's not like he's bleeding out on the floor. Oddie and Saint coming around from the flank as well. Oddie deciding he wants the full pincer assault as Lyonz goes in for the Grand Starfall, and Oddie's into the back line, but he's got to be careful. There's no kills just yet. True Shot Barrage over the top, but Oddie is the first to die. Palafox getting away after the stasis. Saint needs more damage, but he can't find it. Palafox barely hobbling out. It's another shutdown back over to Bvoy. This time Fudge wants in. Hena wants out. Licorice goes in, and Fudge stays fighting. Finally drops. Shutdown credit back over to him. It is a bloodbath both ways, as it's 3 dead bodies on both sides.
And weirdly enough, that's a great outcome for Shopify, because they're the ones that got the bounties, and they're the ones that I feel like were in the most precarious situation there, but they kept betting for LYON to make the right engage on it, and I'll have to see it again. But I don't think Audilon's engage was right. I think he missed his flash Q when he was trying to land the big wombo, and the follow-up was just a little bit delayed from the rest of LYON, which let enough damage fly through from Corki and Viktor to make that close. And they're kind of going to run it right back to Otacon and do this again.
Yeah, it felt a little haphazard there from Oddie and Saint, because you could tell they were doing the pincer attack. It looked like they were initially going to regroup with the team, but then they make the call for the full pincer commit, but it just wasn't all the way coordinated. Lyonz tries to jump in there for the stun, but Zeyzal can immediately retreat to Contractz, get himself a little bit of a safer position. Licorice finds Bvoy, but I don't know if he wants to go any closer than this. Tanking up a little bit of poke here. Third and Tofo strike, not going to hit a knockback on anyone.
It's such a tricky objective to start because it treads you so much. So they're just fighting over the territory right now, but not landing very effective poke on either team. And now it's LYON that has more control of the river. We'll have to see if they start it up, because they don't have enough control to stop the entrances.
Oh, Lyonz tried to flash to go in for the Pantheon stun on Fudge. He doesn't have the range, but they have the Vi instead. Audie setting it up, and Fudge is already down. Now Licorice going in after Bvoy, looking to take the Corki out with them. Saint says, no problem, man, and just like that, 2 catches for LYON. This should be free Otacon.
LYON is a lot happier about this. Shopify Rebellion got tricked a little bit there, trying to retake control of the river, but not staying grouped up. You kind of need to pick when you're behind, whether you're going to fully commit to a mid or a bot priority in order to move into the river. They had Fudge pushing mid, and they had Bvoy kind of randomly in the jungle.
They tried to shoot the gap.
And because there's so many tools for LYON to engage, they just kind of engaged on both of them, one after the other. So nicely done there by LYON to clean up the scraps there that Shopify are presenting.
I hope we get to take a look at the start of the replay there from Lyonz, because the Pantheon wanted to flash W the Jayce to immediately lock him up, just barely didn't have the range. So it looks like a real blunder, but then Audie can close the distance. The Vi sets it up with the ulti. Pantheon follows. Let's take another look right here.
And we keep talking about how much health Jayce has. He has the health, but it goes away really quick. I mean, Hena, he has the transformed Manamune at this point. He's able to dump out the damage. The Heartsteel proc goes off, so Pantheon's strong. And at the same time, Licorice and Saint will just maul Bvoy. Bvoy was slowly moving through the river when the fight was already over, and that was just one of those things where you get sucked into your teammate being in a fight thinking you might be able to turn it around, and you just make it worse.
Yeah, Licorice locks him up with the Ksante, with the Iceborne, putting those slow fields on you. Yeah. And then as soon as it looks like, oh, maybe he finally doesn't have anything left in the tank, Saint shows up, goes between worlds, and then remember that the weirding is an 80% slow. Weirding is really strong slowing, so there's just no way to ever get out of that there for the Corki. Nicely done from LYON. Now they've got the Voracious Otacon with the 5,000 gold lead. I feel like if you're Shopify, you're just praying for a mistake now.
Yeah, they use the first half of the buff just to reset and take the Drake. This isn't a great use of Voracious Otacon as of yet. A lot of times, I like to see the players who will teleport play extra aggressive because they can keep the tempo, so that's going to be Saint and Licorice, who both have teleport up right now. They got to just dive and make a play here.
And it looks like that's the call. Lyonz goes in after Palafox, but Palafox has the completed Zhonya's Hourglass ready for a second stasis. It's a full send coming out from LYON as Palafox continues to be the target, but he continues to stay alive. Lyonz himself barely holding on as Palafox finally going to get dropped by Licorice, but it's 2 false lives sent back to the spawn platform. Shopify holds on for now as LYON continue trying to press the advantage.
But honestly, haven't gotten that much directly. That's 2 withdraws, which is 400 gold. They get 1 kill, which after you share the assist is about 450, so that's pretty even on both sides. What I'd want to see after they burn those health and cooldowns and death timers for Palafox is to immediately go for Baron, but they're a little bit slow. Everyone took a full reset. Saint went and pushed the bot wave, and now they're going to move towards Baron, so I think this is one of the least effective Voracious Otacons we've seen.
Well, if you're Shopify, you're kind of wiping the sweat off your forehead a little bit with that information. You're happy that they weren't able to force any more than they did, because let's be honest, it's a tough task for Shopify at this point in the game. You can even tell by the Drakes, it's soul point for LYON. It's easy to lose track when there's an early soul point in the game because there's just so many neutral objectives now, with the Rift Herald being a little bit delayed, with the Otacon being there around when Baron used to be. But yeah, here in 3.5 minutes, what could be the soul for LYON will spawn if Shopify can't get more control over the neutral area of the map.
And that's the biggest struggle right now for Shopify, is just finding a way to get vision, because they're torn between needing someone in lanes to clear waves and also needing to be grouped up when they're going to retake vision. So they're completely behind there. Zeyzal was trying to get vision, and people were clearing waves, so he's in a bit of trouble.
He luckily had the flash, so he's able to flash over the wall and then retreat to the safety of a teammate. But Licorice and the rest of LYON are taking this as their green light to continue possessing the territory of their opponents, forcing them back, and using the opportunity that they've created with that space to push damage onto the top lane tier 2. They get about 1/3 of the HP on that one down, and Shopify is just struggling to maintain control over their own territory in the face of this 5,500 gold deficit.
Yeah, they're in a very difficult holding pattern right now. It looks like they've been able to withstand the original thing, and Contractz, he's going for it because he's hoping that they recall, and they actually have.
Yeah, it's a full send after Lyonz. The Pantheon, he's annoying, he's hard to kill, but not when you have everybody there to beat him down. Second death of the game for the LYON support, so nice pick there from Shopify, but the question then becomes, what does it get you? What do you earn from this? And so far, it's just 300 gold.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be the gold, because they used a lot there, and it's not like they're necessarily stronger 5v4, but it might be the best chance they get.
Okay, LYON still just trying to keep their distance here. The problem is, we talked about how Braum and Viktor together, they are a great counter-engage team. They can absorb a lot of pressure, but when you're looking at Shopify's comp, how do they actually engage? Corki, Jayce, and Viktor can't do anything. Braum can only do it if the opponent stops looking at their monitor. The only person who can actively engage effectively is the Sejuani, and everything in the tank got spent for the pick on Pantheon.
It absolutely did, and I think the priorities have shifted for LYON after that little bit of Baron posturing. I think they're going to be waiting the minute 30 seconds until Chemtech Drake spawns to try and get that soul. It's a less threatening objective, and it's also where they caught the last set of picks, was just setting up around Otacon bot lane. So it's a little safer, get the Drake. And again, if this game ends and LYON wins, it looks like a straightforward victory the whole time. But they have had to fight for every inch of this. I still think if Shopify could win this next fight and Palafox can actually get to 3 items, they could tilt to being a little bit stronger in fights. But this just, what LYON has been able to do is just keep the tempo up so well, so there's never vision. Like, it's never an even straight up 5v5. It's almost always LYON getting the jump on someone, so it's not a straight up 5v5 team fight. And that, I think, is why they've been so successful.
Yeah, and I want to give LYON credit for that. I want to give them credit for playing so well with Oddie and Saint constantly making these moves, for Lyonz being able to set things up with his Pantheon, knowing the right times and the right angles to take the ultis. I feel like LYON has had those, oh, okay, I see what you're about moments in this game, whereas we haven't had any of those from Shopify, right? One of the biggest things Shopify managed to get this game is a pick on a Pantheon that then doesn't turn into anything else. But Looks like now Licorice might find himself in a bit of a strange spot, but he goes in for the all-out as Zeyzal's taken low here at the very start. Between Worlds going to keep him locked up, and Palafox is already down. Oddie land ready to follow it up here as Bvoy stuck in the middle of 3 and already drop. Fudge trying to get away over the wall as Contractz tries to flash to safety. It's a triple kill for Aurora. It's a quadra kill for Saint. Contractz is the only thing standing between the LYONz mid laner and a Penta. He'll head back to base, tail between his legs, and LYON just slammed him.
And that is going to be the fight that sends LYON into what is likely an insurmountable lead. It's a bit weird here, to be honest, that Shopify is going for a play this high up on the map when they are the team that is behind. I think they didn't want to play that slow bleed game of waiting for the next Chemtech, so they just hoped that LYON didn't have the backup arriving. The backup arrives in perfect time. Saint, 3 full items on Aurora, lands the ult on everyone, gets all those Q pullbacks and 3-hit passives to clean up the rest of the fight, and that's likely going to give them a 1-0 in this series.
See a little bit of nerves, a little bit of stress in the back lane.
It's been a tense game.
Yeah.
Even if it's the tensest 15-4 game we've seen in the LTA so far.
All right, well, hey, this Drake, that thing is dropping. That is Chem Soul for LYON. And I want to again go back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, because we saw a bit of it in the replay. Fudge's health bar looks very scary until you see how much damage a single hit will do to it, because he has over 4,000 life in terms of just direct raw HP. All of his items give HP: Black Cleaver, Fimbulwinter, Edge of Night, another raw belt. But in terms of resistances,
oh, they're just diving.
There's just nothing there. Yeah, speaking of nothing there, ain't going to be much left of Bvoy either, as the True Shot Barrage finishes the job. Beautiful shot from Hena to guarantee they get what they came for. Shopify scrambling to try to hold the line now, as Hena is crashing the second wave into the turret down here in the bottom lane at the same time, so everybody's going to rotate over. This tier 3 is gone. The mid lane tier 3 will follow, and both inhibitors now under pressure at the exact same time. LYONz could be in danger. The chain CC on him is enough to burst the Pantheon down even through all of his HP, but it's at the cost of 2 inhibitors in the base of Shopify Rebellion.
It's been a rough game for Palafox in particular. Even though he wasn't the one who died in this fight, he's the one that enabled LYON to make such an aggressive dive. Palafox was trying to get a deep push on the top wave, thinking the team might be able to hold on a little bit, but when it's this much of a full dive comp with Aurora Vi, you just don't have the timing to do that. And you can think all the way back to the start of this game. He gets his flash burned a little bit early, they punish it immediately, and he's literally just never been able to get that next foot forward. He's always been playing like he's behind in tempo this entire time, and it's honestly been a really good game from LYON to punish that on repeat so far.
And you can tell that they are focusing him. You can tell that he's aware of that, because look at his build. He just completed Void Staff, but before that it was a very vegan Viktor. The triple V.
Zonia's second is pretty rough.
The very vegan Viktor. It's Seraphs into the Zonia's, very defensive itemization. Not saying that it's bad in particular, but saying that you're never going to be the cannon. You're never going to be the guy that wipes the enemy team off the map. Yes, you're good at baiting them into bad engages, but man, they're 12,000 gold ahead. I don't think there's such thing as a bad engage now.
I know. It's definitely a little bit of hindsight, and I'm not 100% up to speed on Viktor builds, but I would have loved to see something like a little bit like maybe Grasp or something, then he can build more offensive, but one more fight from Shopify, I think.
Contractz going in on the front line here, but meanwhile, Licorice ready to cut off his escape, goes all out. Contractz is done. Oddie land very close to death's door, but he ain't quite knocking on it just yet. Palafox and Zeyzal, Bvoy, all at about half HP, trying to retreat. Zeyzal throws up the Unbreakable just to try to shield him from the True Shot Barrage. LYON don't need it. They force their opponents back into the fountain to try to heal, back to the Nexus turrets to try to hold them, because they're the last line of defense. The third inhibitor now falls. Licorice is going to take a recall because he's got a teleport ready to rejoin the rest of his team. Fudge wants to go to the skies and stop him, but it's only going to hold off the inevitable. This map belongs to LYON.
It really does. And you could see a lot of damage actually on to Oddie's Vi there. If he didn't have the Sterix and the Chem Soul, he probably dies. So a little bit of fight still left in Shopify, but man, 13,000 gold, Chem Soul, Voracious Otacon already down. I'm pretty sure they're going to be ending it soon. And he's in.
Okay, Oddie's full sending it after Bvoy. They're ready for the follow-up here with a grand starfall from Lyonz. True shot barrage from Hena gets it done one more time. Lion with a full 5-man press going in towards those Nexus turrets. First one's already halfway dead, and they'd love to send it the rest of the way there. Wave clear from Palafox, and Shopify is good enough to buy them a little bit more time, but Saint is escorting another wave with another super minion up through the bottom lane. Contractz goes for the ulti, but he does not hit. Between Worlds does, and Saint's ready to keep the pressure on. Zeyzal drops first. Contractz at 200 HP, barely clinging to life. One more projectile in the air, but it just barely misses. It does not matter. Licorice goes all out again as Fudge barely escapes, and the first Nexus turret falls. Licorice stays alive as Lion continues the assault. Shopify scrambling to try to defend. Another true shot barrage flies through, and Shopify's health bars just can't hold on any longer. 35 minutes in, 20-5 in kills. Lion takes game one.
What a game by Lion, bouncing back from that rough 0-2 they had last week against Cloud9. The big criticism was that they weren't on the same page, or that they weren't coordinated. And what do they do here in week 2? They just run it back, more engaged, but this time they were on the same page.
Awesome stuff from them. And hey, a reminder, attention, this is a public service announcement. The LTA will be back in the main Riot Games arena next week at the usual time, but only on Sunday. We'll only have 2 series left to play next weekend, so Saturday is not going to have any games. Make sure you tune in next Sunday to see who the last 2 teams will be to punch their ticket to Brazil, and who's going to have to wait for Split 2. We're heading to break before that.